Just a few years ago, I did a comparison test of Korean 3000 and 3500 watt monoblock amps. These amps from DC Audio, Crescendo, Scar, Sundown, and Orion. You can check the link in the video description if you want to look at this and follow up on that test. It was pretty epic. But coming out on top of that test was the Orion 3000.1DSPLX, which really blew the other ones away. That amp is still available in 2022. Currently $679 on Amazon. However, Orion has introduced a newer model, the 4500.1DSPLX, and it's $1099 currently on Amazon. So I reached out to Orion to find out if they would send me one of these for testing because I didn't want to purchase a $1,100 amp to do an amp dyno test for you guys. They did. They sent me the amp, so here we go. You can see here on the burst sheet, it says 6,120 watts at 14.4 for this amp. And this is a 2022 model. And we're going to talk about some of the differences in this model and some of the older ones. It does have a remote bass knob that is metal with a clip light now. So let's take the amp out of the box and take a closer look and see what it's all about. One of the big complaints we had of the earlier 3K SPLX was the cheap bass knob. They have upgraded the bass knob. It's metal enclosed, has power, has clip light, really nice potentiometer, uses a telephone style connector there. And here's the amp. Yeah, it looks a lot like the 3000.1DSPLX. Still has these plastic end caps on here, which I'm not a true fan of, honestly. Overall, the red anodized color looks really cool. The amp is kind of big. We'll get into the dimensions in a little bit. First, let's take off these end caps so we can get a closer look. There are 2 Allen head screws that hold in each side. And the purpose of the end caps here is just to cover up the terminal so you don't short anything out. I know that's the purpose of it, but I'm not just a big fan of these at all. As before, on the ends of the Orion, it's really difficult to see the text because there's not enough contrast. You can see the black on red doesn't really help. Power, clipping, protection light, RCA ins, RCA outs, and the potentiometers are a little different than most. These actually have detents in them, and I put the mic up close so you can hear them in action. These potentiometers said to have 51 clicks and are high precision and designed to not vary your settings based on vibration. As for controls, there's a level control. It doesn't say the minimum maximum voltage. Subsonic from 10 Hz to 40 Hz, bass boost 0 to 18 dB, low pass filter 300 down to 40 Hz, phase 0 to 180. There's also a switch for master or slave, the data link for using slave amps, and then the remote connection for the subwoofer. On the opposite side, triple 1-aught inputs, and my big praise about this amp is the 3 grounds are lined up and the 3 12 volts are lined up, so they're all stacked together, which is nice. Then you have the remote in the very center, and on the far right we have 4-gauge speaker outputs. As far as ratings go, the amp is rated at 2,000 watts at 4 ohms, 3,150 at 2 ohms, or 4,500 at 1 ohm, all at 14.4 volts. Dimensions, 20.5 on the long side, 11.8 inches width, 3 inches in the height, as well as the millimeter equivalents are there for those outside the US. Now for the part many of you came here for is to see the amp dyno test. On the amp dyno, you'll notice the wattage output is on the left, ohm load is in the middle, voltage is on the right. We're also going to show you the clamp meter. You'll see the remote display so we can calculate efficiency. First up, 4 ohms mono rated 2,000 watts at 14.4. Of course, these tests are run at 40 Hz to simulate subwoofer. Certified test of 1% THD, 1952. 14.77, so we're right there at the 2,000 watts. It's rated just a little bit shy. Uncertified up to clipping, we're going to easily get that 2,000 watts. 2256, 14.74. Voltage is strong, of course, due to our LTO bank of lithium cells. Dynamically, 40 Hz pulse tone going into the amplifier. 2,366 watts at 14.77. Efficiency was good, 76.8%. Again, we can't assume exact efficiency numbers here, so somewhere between 75 and 80% or so. 2 ohms mono rated 3150 watts at 14.4. Certified test first, 1% distortion. Easily get that number. 3691. Voltage is a little strong at 14.84. Now let's reset the dyno for the uncertified test. Honestly, these big subwoofer amplifiers, uncertified test is really the one you want to pay attention to. Over 4,079 at 14.72. Let's reset the dyno for the dynamic test. And here we go, 40 hertz pulse track. Kicking it. The Orion, over 4,000 watts, 4190, 14.99. Efficiency, even a little better at 2 ohms, 78.9%, so close to 80%. That's very good. 1 ohm mono rated 4500 watts. It is the 4500.1DSPLX, and we get, yeah boy, 6110. Yeah boy! I can hear people right now complaining, oh, this amp is too powerful for what you're getting. You have to remember, I have extremely strong voltage here on the test, and this is the best case scenario. So I'm just showing you guys what you can expect if you have packed electrical. 6371 at 14.4 uncertified. So there's your number right at 14.4. Dynamically, let's see what we get with a pulse track. Pushing 7K. Oh yes, surpassing 7K. Look at that, it keeps counting. 7509 at 14.87. Efficiency is good, 73% at 1 ohm. Not excellent, but still actually pretty good. The results page here shows you pretty much a summary of what you just saw. Hopefully you watched all the tests. Amp performed well. 4 ohms, 1% THD is the only one that didn't quite meet the rated power, but everything else it blew it out of the water. Now what's inside? Well, let's get out the good old screwdriver and let's find out what's inside this beast and take off the little warranty seals. That's right, we broke them. Pry the amp up. It does have a seal all the way around, so it's hard to get the bottom off initially. And there's beef, my friends. 4 power transformers, lots of beefy capacitors, an active fan in the middle. Again, the 4 toroidal transformers here. We're going to take a closer look at the caps as well. 2200 microfarad, 35 volt for the power supply filtering. For the rails, we have 160 volt, 1200 microfarad. These amps are made in an Orion factory by Orion in Korea. Let's look at the power supply. It has 8 of the RFP 4868 N-channel MOSFETs on the power supply section. The output also uses MOSFETs, 16 of the RFP 1405 HEXFET power MOSFETs. Now let's talk about the pros and cons, things I like, things I think could be better, at least things that you should be aware of. First off, rated power plus in all modes except for the 1% at 4 ohms, 1110 inputs. The positive and negative inputs are grouped together, which is really nice. The amp is linkable, has active cooling, very beefy Tiffany style RCAs. It does have a bass remote with a clip indicator now, so stepping it up Orion. Now what about the things I think could be better? $400 more than the 3000 DSPLX. Is it worth it? That's up to you to decide. Plastic end caps and not a fan. Text on the end panels is hard to read. No voltage or temperature on remote. Single speaker output that is 4 gauge. Upgraded electrical obviously is required for an amp like this. Korean made is more money, so get out your wallet. So there you have the test, the Orion 4500.1DSPLX. What did I think overall? I think the amp performed well, above its rated specs. These are beefy amplifiers. Would I recommend it? Well, that's up to you to decide. I do these tests showing you the amps, showing you what they do, showing you their features. You guys decide what you want to buy. So there you have it. There is a lot of competition in this area nowadays with this size of amplifier. And also the 3000.1DSPLX is still a good competitor to this one. So thanks as always for watching. Until next time, Big D, I'm out of here. Thanks for sticking around for the extras. Let's try 0.8 and lower. Get ready, here it comes. Orion 4500 DSPLX, let's try 0.8 certified to 1% THD. 6534, right at 14.38. Orion 4500D, let's try uncertified up to clipping at 0.8. Almost 7,000, 6936 at 14.19. Orion 4500.1DSPLX, let's try a 0.8 dynamic burst at 40 Hertz. Nice power. 8636 at 14.57. Orion 4500 DSPLX 0.67 dynamic burst, 40 Hertz. Here we go. Kept counting up, 9764 at 14.63. Here's a test that blew us out of the water with the 3000.1DSPLX. Let's try half an ohm burst test with the 4500 DSPLX Orion HCCA. Not sure it's going to survive this test. This is a crazy test. Again, with speakers, this is probably 1/4 of an ohm, but let's try it. Here we go. Hopefully we don't blow the amp, but here we go. Okay, it did go into protect at 9921. I will show you that. It is in protection, so that's always better than the amp blowing up. So now let's power cycle the amp, make sure it comes back on. So no permanent damage to the amp. Amp works as expected. So it just goes into protect at half an ohm dynamic burst.
You know how them sound waves go?
Hustle hard, hustle every single